feeling good. Getting better. Feeling good. I can't let it go. I'm feeling good. 'Cause I never say never.
Hello, and here we go. Welcome to another episode of The Geoff Wilson Show. I just got back from the Mint Collective Card Show in Las Vegas. It was a great event, but what should have been a celebration of the collector community was overshadowed by one of the titans of the industry falling flat on its face. Card grading company Beckett, the best known brand in the hobby, put on a show in the most unfortunate of ways. They had planned to use Mint Collective to reveal a new grading scale, but they botched the reveal 3 separate times. And then after an avalanche of backlash on social media, they reversed course and said they are going back to the drawing board. The execution of the reveal was atrocious, but the thinking that led up to it was largely correct. And their decision to back off and reformulate their plan was the right one. While Beckett deserved jeers for their rollout, they also now deserve praise for listening to the feedback and admitting they need to rethink their plans. And here's something that everyone is missing. During all of this, Beckett became the most talked about company in the hobby for the first time in a long time. And while much of the attention was negative, it was still more attention than they've received in eons. And if they now seize the moment and make the right decisions from here, it can become the biggest positive moment in their business's history. So Kelly, we're going to talk about this. Welcome back from the Mint Collective.
Well, welcome back to you. You're busy, man. You're running all over the show floor.
I was. It was a really fun show.
you were in the midst of the chaos with this, though.
I was really in the midst of the chaos because it actually personally affected me. I was actually trying to grade a card with Beckett. There's a whole story there. We're going to tell that story on our Sports Card Investor vlog that's going to come out this Sunday night. But it's. Yes, it was. I was caught right in the middle of the whole Beckett thing. It was a little bit wild.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as you say, you can always spin it. Bad PR, sometimes good PR, in the sense that people are talking, they're having a conversation. So for those that maybe don't necessarily know the timeline of events, let's go back to the actual timeline. How did this happen? What was the start?
Well, the start actually was not what the start should have been. The start was that Beckett was setting up their booth on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And somebody else on the show floor, they had a big sign that said new grading scale.
Yeah.
And it had a card that was 95959595, and it now had an overall grade of a 10. Someone snapped a photo of this, and then it started circulating around social media. Mistake number 1 by Beckett.
Hide.
If you want to reveal the news, you cannot expose it on a sign during setup when there are many other people walking around.
Oh, yes.
They lost control of their own news story. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is the sign was wrong, which is crazy. So on Friday, so that goes around social media on Thursday. And then as soon as it starts going around social media, Beckett puts tarps over top of it to cover it up. Now, of course, at that point, the photo's already out.
Right.
But they put tarps to cover it up, right? Then on Friday, Beckett, a Beckett representative, I think it was Scott Roskin at the show in one of the sessions, said to the crowd that what's going around social media is not right. Which everyone's like, well, what do you mean it's not right? It was a photo of
and
the sign.
Well, if it's not right, then what is right?
Then what is right?
Yeah.
And at that moment, he addressed the audience. He didn't say what is right. He just said that's not right. More details coming soon. Then a social media video comes out where he is explaining the new scale, and he says in the new video that it's going to take a 95959510 in order to get a 10 grade. And so then Beckett puts out more information about that. They update the sign on their booth so that when the card show starts that evening, now the booth is altered so that the sample slab shows 95959510,
right,
getting a 10 grade. But then as part of that, they then announced that if you have 4 9.5s, that's now called a Mint Plus, whereas it's currently called a Gem Mint.
Right.
Which all this, so the idea that a 95959510 becomes an overall 10, that upsets people who currently have pristine 10s. They paid a premium for pristine 10s. Now they're upset by that news. Now the fact that you're saying, but a 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, 9.5 now is changing a name from a Gem Mint to just a Mint Plus, that upsets everybody who has a card with all 9.5s because now their card's going to have a lesser grade associated with it. So, none of this is making people happy on social media. There's a ton of complaining about on social media. It also felt like Beckett was changing some of this on the fly.
Yes.
I mean, just the way that the announcement video came out, that was put out, wasn't very professionally produced. It looked like it was kind of put together on the fly. It looked like some of the stuff was being changed on the fly.
Sitting in front of a blank wall with a hoodie on, just trying to explain what's going on. But
none of it was crisp.
When you do event work, those signs have to be approved. I mean, that's a long manufacture date for that sign. They intentionally put 495s there.
Yeah, I know. And that's the weird thing. That's why like when I saw all of this, I'm like, I had less issue with the decision. We'll talk about that. I actually think Beckett put some good thinking into this, but the way that that was executed, the sign's wrong. Maybe it wasn't wrong, but they decided to quickly change it based on feedback. I don't know what happened, but something weird happened over that 24 to 48 hour period. And then it all ended with on Saturday, that afternoon, they decided to reverse course and not make any of the changes and go back to the drawing board. And so then that was like breaking news on the Saturday. So it was just this series of things that occurred that weren't quite right.
I mean, I guess then the question is, do you think that this was the right idea in the first place?
So obviously they should have sought more customer feedback ahead of time. And then it was kind of an admission. They made an admission there at the end about we got so much feedback, we didn't have this much feedback going into it, and they should have gotten more feedback to begin with, without a doubt. However, I actually think the overall move by Beckett was right. I think the concept from Beckett that they need a 10 grade on a card that has at least 495s was the proper move. Beckett has gotten the price of Beckett cards on the secondary market over the last couple of years has gotten absolutely hammered. A PSA 10 has become extremely more valuable than a Beckett 9.5.
Yeah, it's almost like the industry standard.
And I think part of the reason for that is because you've had a lot of new collectors come into the space, and a 10 is a higher number than a 9.5. It's just psychology. A 10 feels like a perfect 10. A 9.5 feels like there's something wrong with it. It's not a 10, it's only a 9.5. It's just a psychological thing. What's wild is in the history of the hobby, there was a time when the reverse was true. There was a time when a Beckett 9.5 was more valuable than a PSA 10. There was actually a story, this is unbelievable, but my good friend Joe Davis at GotBaseballCards.com, he had a customer a number of years ago who had a PSA 10 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan, a card that today is worth around $150,000. It's been bouncing around some. And he cracked that card out of the case to cross it over to get a Beckett 9.5. Because back at that point in time, and the Beckett 9.5 comparatively today is worth probably $30,000 to $50,000. So it's worth less than a third of what a PSA 10 is on that card. Oof. There was a point in time when the Beckett 9.5 was more valuable than the PSA 10 of that card. And that customer who crossed it over and got a 9.5 was thrilled because it actually helped the value of the card that it was the Beckett 9.5 instead of a PSA 10. That was a number of years ago. When I got back into the hobby, like 5 years ago, a PSA 10 was a little more valuable than a BGS 9.5, but only a little more valuable, like 20% more valuable. Today, it's a massive difference. Beckett had to do something. And I think the idea that Beckett, would upgrade their grading scale to have what they consider their, gem mint to actually be a 10, I think it was a smart move. I actually personally think they should have just eliminated the 9.5 altogether. And I personally think that any card, no matter the subgrades, that would have qualified for a 9.5 now becomes a 10, and they just kill the 9.5. That, in my opinion, is what they should have done. If they want to keep the 9.5 for cards that aren't at least 4.95 subgrades, that's fine. But a card that is 4.95 subgrade should absolutely be a 10. They should essentially round up, to a 10. That should absolutely become a 10. I do think that will help them in the secondary market. I do think that will give them, help them compete better against PSA. So I think the thinking was right. Everything that happened as part of the announcement and the change of plans and just all of that obviously was not right.
Now, here's, I guess, a larger question. Do we think subgrades is a problem, like listing these subgrades? Because you've talked about it where you've gotten cards back and like it's a 9.5 but it's like a 9 corners and so it's sometimes when you have these lower subgrades on a decent card, it ends up detrimenting the value. Do we think that subgrades are a problem? And then I guess my other question is, when do you think the actual psychological shift happened from PSA to becoming a higher value with the 10 than the 9.5?
I actually like the subgrades because I think the subgrades are a differentiator. I mean, one thing, you've got obviously multiple grading companies in the space. It's good for a grading company to have something unique that's different than the other grading companies that helps them stand out. It's clearly with Beckett the subgrades. That's what they've got. I mean, SGC doesn't have it. PSA doesn't have it. Beckett's got the subgrades. And I really think that is actually an advantage for them, a unique advantage for them that they have those. But I think that, again, the psychology of people just loving the 10 overall grade, I think as long as Beckett changes that piece of it, it's okay. Look, Beckett, if you look at the number of cards that have been submitted to these grading companies over the last couple of years, the gap between the number of cards submitted to PSA and the number of cards submitted to Beckett has gotten massive. And it didn't used to be that way. Beckett used to be busy just like PSA was busy. SGC has literally, over the last couple of years, come out from a distant third, and now they are consistently every single month grading more cards than Beckett every single month. Huge shift. Like that was never the case a few years ago. And so Beckett had to do something. And I think they should keep the subgrades. I just think they need to change the grading scale, add the 10 as they were already talking about doing, but at a minimum do it all 4.95s are a 10. I personally think they get rid of the 9.5 altogether.
Okay.
But whatever they do, they obviously need to do it with much better communication, much better execution, and the voice of their customers in mind. Look, they're never going to be able to make a change that is going to make everybody 100% happy. That is never going to happen. No matter what they decide on this, they are going to upset people. So the way they deliver the news, the way they do it, and the number of people that they talk to and listen to leading up to it is critically important. People, if they make a decision that somebody doesn't like, that person is at least going to respect the decision more if they feel like they had input in the process and their voice was heard. If Beckett can stand up now and say, we have received feedback from thousands of collectors. We have listened to all the feedback. We have considered all of it. No matter what we decide, the feedback's not universal. Everyone's got a different opinion. No matter what we decide, it's not going to make everybody happy. But here's the decision that we feel is most aligned with our customers and most aligned with what we're hearing people say. And this is the decision that's also going to be best for the future of Beckett. So this is the decision we're making. At least if you do that, people feel like their voice was heard, even if you didn't choose the route that they wanted you to take. Yeah,
but so we're having this conversation today because a large company, a very well-known hobby company, one that's a staple, the name Beckett is a staple. They made decisions and these are, drastic decisions when it comes to the value of their cards. It's a drastic decision when it comes to the value of like the people that grade through them, whether they want to continue to grade through them with this new grading scale. Now, a lot is determined about a company about the process in which they make large decisions. If a company is quick to make a decision, then is it better that they stick with the decision that they made internally, with whatever review they got back? Or is it better for a large company that to make a decision, get immediate negative feedback from the decision, and then waver in their stance? I mean, was it the proper thing for them to make this decision to step back from the choice? Because I'd imagine I'm hoping they had multiple conversations about this, because it's a very large, very, very large decision. And, as you could tell by the sign that they made, I mean, they put a lot of money into that display. They had in the back of it, behind even just the gold label that was there with the numbers on the subgrades and the actual grade, they had the lettering Gem Mint behind it. So they had a lot of intentionality on really hyping up the Gem Mint. I mean, they told everybody going into this, there's a huge announcement. They were excited about it. I mean, you could tell from the team that they were deflated about the response that they got. But do you think it was the right thing for them to do, to take a step back instead of sticking with the decision?
100%, 1000%. Taking the step back was absolutely the right decision based upon all the feedback that they were getting at that point in time and based on how critical of a decision this is for their business. Here's a really important point. Although, there was some waffling on the decision and there was the rollout and then a change and then a rollback of the whole thing, people aren't really going to remember that 5 or 10 years from now. What people are going to remember is, did they eventually get the decision right?
True.
Is the grading scale correct?
True.
There have been plenty of examples of big companies that have made bad decisions, but then faced with an immediate avalanche of customer feedback, have quickly reversed course and backed off of the decision. Remember when Netflix wanted to change their name? I forget what, I can't even remember.
I can't remember that.
I can't even remember what they wanted to change their name to, but they were going to change their name. There was all of this crazy pushback on that and feedback about that. They quickly realized they had made a bad decision, reversed the decision, and then stuck with Netflix, right? At the time, they were getting made fun of by a lot of people, Saturday Night Live skits and whatever. Like, how could they decide this? This was so dumb. What was the thinking? How could they look so stupid? But the truth of the matter is, that all wears off and goes away. And in the long run, what matters is, did they eventually make the right decision and do the right thing? So with Beckett, it was a black eye. It didn't look great the way that the whole thing was executed. But that's not what people are going to care about a year from now. People are going to care about the grading scale and did they eventually get the decision right? And so I 100% believe it was the right call for them to say, okay, we've got all this customer feedback. We're backing off. We're going back to the drawing board. And now the key is they need to get the decision right. But the really interesting thing is, because of all the attention they received throughout this, when they now announce the decision the next time,
it's got to be right.
Well, it's got to be right. Yes, it has to be right. 100%. 100%. And they're going to have to stick to it with conviction.
With conviction.
But at the same time, it's also going to be the most watched, most discussed decision in probably the history of the sports card hobby, which could be wonderful for their business. The publicity that they're going to get from the next announcement, if they do it in the right way, could be the greatest thing to ever happen to their business.
Yeah. I agree with you. I hear what you're saying with this on them, stepping back. And it is important for them to have the step back, but then the step forward. Because I do think, when you're talking about, will people remember this? They will absolutely remember this if there's nothing that happens after this. If it is just like never mind, we're not going to do it. We'll take this back to the drawing board and then nothing comes of it. People will remember that. People will remember that. People remember when National last year, where they had that, mega slab and it looked like they were changing their label. And they were like, oh no, this is not our new label. But they clearly put, money behind displaying a very different type of label than any label they've ever done before. So, there's nothing that came out of that. They stuck with the same label. There was really no conversation after that with the whole label thing. So I think at this moment, with a lot with what you're saying, it is, you've introduced a new concept now. Because before this, nobody was saying, oh, Beckett should change their grading scale. There were conversations about it, but it was not this huge outcry of this needs to happen. But it's Beckett's decision that you, and as you said, you think is a great decision. But it's at this moment now that they've already made that step. They've already informed the hobby that this is something that they're looking into, that they want to do. But now I think people will remember it if they don't do anything about it.
They will.
And I think there's also will be a moment where, yeah, you're absolutely right. You've, in a odd way, set yourself up for one of the biggest announcements in the hobby, not only this year, but in a couple of years. Like, this is a major announcement now when it comes out. So then I guess we're talking about, well, where does Beckett go from here? Like, how long do you think is an appropriate time between this event and this, PR disaster and them needing to get it right? Do you think the national is a time for them to announce?
No, before the national. They need to seize this PR moment. If I were the CEO of Beckett, here's what I would do right now.
Right.
I would immediately send out surveys to all of my customers. I would have multiple channels. I would have surveys being emailed out to people. I would have a survey on my website. I'd be going on social media, asking for feedback. I would be collecting as much feedback from the world as possible. Now, here's the truth. Even if they don't read a lot of the feedback, even if they don't analyze and listen to every single bit of the feedback, just the fact that they are collecting the feedback and creating the image that they're listening to their customers and that they care about what people have to say. Of course, now I would much prefer for them to actually
read the
listen
feedback.
to the feedback. But just the fact that they're trying to make an effort to collect it will go far.
Yeah.
Then they need to act quickly once they've had time to process the feedback, though. So they need to have enough time to collect the feedback, and I would start collecting the feedback immediately. I would give it a week or two for all the feedback to come in. I would give it 1 week to process it. I would make a decision and I would announce it. I think the decision has to be announced within the next 20 to 30 days. The reason why is they have to build. They have a huge opportunity right here.
Yeah.
Everybody is talking about Beckett for the first time in ages. They have to capitalize on this opportunity. If you're the CEO of Beckett, you want to get all that customer research, you want to make a really well thought out decision, and then you want to immediately get back in front of the public while it's still a hot topic, while people like us are still talking about it. You need to get back in front of the public and say, we have heard, we have listened to all of your voices, and here is the decision we are now making, which we feel is in the best interest of you, our customers. We feel it is in the best interest of the sports card hobby, and we feel it is in the best interest of our business and the future of Beckett. Make that decision while you're still in the cycle of people talking about you, and it could turn into the single greatest moment in Beckett's history.
Yeah.
If they handle it the right way.
20 to 30 days. That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, because after that, people are going to forget. It's got to be soon.
Well, they're not going to forget about it, but they're gonna. It's not going to be Hot Topic. There's going to be something coming up.
They have to show immediate response, and I don't think they wait. They should not wait to the national to announce it, because they already tried to announce this at one event,
right?
And it did not work.
Right.
Don't wait till another event to announce it. Just announce it.
Also, don't put a big production behind it, because people are expecting it. They don't need this
at this
fancy
point.
affair.
Yes.
No.
At this point,
just
yes.
give them the details.
I don't need a sign
revealing.
Correct. Just very professionally, very concisely, directly to the point. Again, the key is collect feedback, listen to the audience, make a decision, be firm in the decision, and make sure that you truly believe the decision is the right thing for your customers, the right thing for the hobby, and the right thing for the future of your business. Those are the three things that really have to be satisfied. Are you doing the right thing for your customers? Are you doing the right thing for the hobby? And are you doing the right thing for the future of your business? If they can confidently say yes, this is the right grading scale change, because it is what we believe is right for our customers. It is what we believe is right for the hobby. It is what we believe is right for our business. And we have heard from our customers, and we have heard from the hobby, and we've considered all of that. And this is what we believe is right. If they can confidently stand up and say that and make that decision, then Beckett could come out of this situation like a hero. A hero.
Devil's advocate. What if they do none of those things and they still make a decision? Like, they only take the feedback that they've gotten off of this event, and they take no additional feedback from customers or anything like that. What then is the narrative?
I think it sends the wrong message. I think it's the wrong decision. I think you have to. I know they've gotten a lot of feedback already via social. Right. I really think you have to hit the reset button right now. Like, I think the proper way to handle this is to hit the reset button right now. And you have to get, this event is over, hit the reset button and say, okay, we're taking a fresh look at this. But a fresh look needs to be running the process how it should have been run the first time. And that process needed to start with customer surveys and surveys of the hobby community. It had to start that way. They didn't start it that way. It had to start that way in a public manner too, not just in a, we're going to go talk to a few collectors and dealers on the side privately. Do it publicly. We're surveying the hobby. We're surveying our customers. By the way, that also creates a connection between you and all of those people.
Yeah.
If you invite...
Also creates additional buzz because people will be like, hey, I just got this survey from Beckett. They're taking this seriously.
And I haven't heard, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't think PSA has surveyed people about grading scales or SGC or any of the other. I haven't heard them doing that.
That's a good point because it's more of like a community-based decision.
So
that's a good play.
Beckett can really flip this into such a golden opportunity.
Yep.
Yes, it was a mess how it was handled, but they are right now, if they play their cards right, this next few weeks, they are staring in the face the greatest moment in the history of their company, but they have to play their cards right. And I swear it's got to start with a customer survey. It's got to start with this connection with customers where customers feel like they're being heard and they feel like, oh, wait a minute, Beckett cares about me and cares about what I think about the grading scale.
They're invested
That's interesting.
in us.
PSA's never once asked me about their grading scale.
Yeah.
SGC's never once asked me about their grading scale.
So not to beat a dead horse, but I do want to ask this last question and then we'll talk a little bit about other things that came out of Mint because, Mint's a big event. There's other news that came out of Mint. But if they play their cards right, if they do everything appropriately for what makes sense for Beckett, what makes sense for the company, what makes sense for the hobby, grading scale, all that stuff, they come out, they do the forums, they get the feedback, they make the decision, whatever the decision is, hoping it's the right one, hoping it's a good decision. Do we then see this transformation of the disparity between value of a PSA 10 and what you would consider a Gem 10 for BGS?
I think it will help the value of whatever cards end up getting the 10.
Right.
And I think it will probably hurt the value some of the cards that maybe are on the lower end of that 9.5 scale and don't end up getting a 10. I think that's probably ultimately what will happen. I will say that this needs to be just the first of multiple steps by Beckett in order to really, fix the fact that they have fallen behind PSA and SGC at this point. They have to have better technology. They have to have a better submission process for submitting your cards to grading. They have to have better customer service. They have to have they essentially have to kind of repackage what they're doing in all aspects. PSA has made a lot of really savvy moves recently by having a vault that they can now offer to vault your cards in, tying in with a marketplace with Golden, where you can now instantly push your cards to Golden. You're getting your cards graded and you can ship them to the vault for free and save shipping costs. You can from the vault ship them to a market, have them go live on Golden. And so there's this whole ecosystem.
Also, they just announced, PSA did this new sort of like photo filter thing. So you can start, getting your actual scans back of your card and then sharing it to social media with backgrounds. Like that's very inventive.
Yeah, PSA is very forward on their technology. Beckett has to get much more forward on their technology. So it's not just, change the grading scale and all of a sudden they're going to catch back up with SGC and start to challenge PSA again. It's more than that. But I do think this is a start in the right direction. And once again, more so than changing their grading scale, if they can use this opportunity to reconnect with their customers and really listen and show them that they're valuable, that might be the thing that has the most positive impact on their business over the long term.
Gosh, again, it was such a I don't want to say, mess up, but it was a mess up. Like there was just so many things. It was like one step right after the other that just sort of went wrong and completely drove the narrative for the entire show. But outside of that, what are other takeaways that you had from it? Other things that you saw, experienced, that type of thing?
Well, let me turn that question on you. I'm going to talk about it as well, but this was your first time ever going to Mint Collective.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious, impressions, vibe. What did you expect? You've done an industry summit in the past and a few of the other events, right?
So this felt more like an actual industry conference for me. Like I've not only been to the Samsung technology conference, but I've like worked it as well. I've been to MLS conferences. Like I've been to these conferences that end up just getting a lot of money pumped into them. So, when I've originally gone to card shows and industry events for the hobby, there has been a big disparity between what my previous expectations were and what I was sort of faced with. Mint was a closer combination between what I depict as being an industry standard with industry conference shows. It actually was a lot closer than I anticipated. I mean, you had the production value with the stages and the mics and, these lounge seats and, you had an actual production team there, videotaping it, mixing sound, doing all that. Those types of people I love because, I mean, they are in the background. Nobody sees them, but they make everything look so polished. It was incredible. And then you had the mixer the first night, which was really lovely. It was fun to sort of get in there, play some poker with other people. Just generally, it was a better networking event than I've ever experienced with the hobby. The actual, showcase, I got to do that after I went to a dinner, and that was really nice because it's like you get a preview of all the booths before it actually opens. I mean, eBay had a huge built out with a VR section, which I thought was really cool. And you see these people that just sort of like the PSA, the Becketts, the Paninis, the Tops, the eBays, these big companies that shell out a lot of money for these designs. And it to me was the closest I've ever felt to being in an actual industry conference. Yeah. And I really love that. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the card show, but I wasn't able to attend really much on Saturday. But it was the closest feeling that I've ever felt to being in an industry conference from what I've experienced in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think anybody who's interested in the business of cards, anyone who is, interested in more than just a card show, they're interested in, well, how does this work behind the scenes? Maybe they have a startup idea or are working on a startup, or maybe they want to work for one of the big companies in the hobby, or maybe they're a content creator and they're trying to create content and figure that out, or whatever their aspect is. Even maybe they're just a big collector and they want a more sophisticated thing that they can go to where they can actually learn, right? Versus just simply attending a card show normal. And Mint is perfect for all of those things, right?
Yeah. So exactly what you said. It's like the biggest difference for me was the people who were attending. So a card show, we love going to card shows. We go to card shows all the time. You meet a lot of people. You meet a lot of collectors. You meet a lot of, local card shop owners, all of this stuff. The Mint Industry Summit the Mint was this combination of people that are business owners from Australia. You had people from Korea there. You had people from all over the continental U.S., Canada. You're talking with people who are making consistent industry hobby decisions, and it feels like this collective pool of people who are heads of marketing, chief creative visionary officers, CEOs, entrepreneurs. Like, again, it was this just smattering of people who this is everything for them. And it's so lovely to have that connection, that communication between all of these people, because it really is the most pinnacle point that you get in a year, especially when it comes to networking, because it allows you to understand other people's narratives and how you can work or combine within those narratives. So it's a great avenue for opportunity. I wish, and I've always wanted the National, by the way, to do more of that type of programming. So at the Mint, you get an entire full day of panels. Yeah.
Of panels and speakers and that kind of thing. Get a whole day of it, different tracks, different panels you can go to, multiple options of panels to go to all at the same time. Everything about the future of cards, data behind the sports card market, previews of new upcoming products, conversations with the leads of grading companies, of marketplaces, really interesting stuff, a whole day of it. I've always wanted the National to do that. I don't understand why the National doesn't take like the Wednesday, the opening day, and say this is like
panels before we actually open to the public.
Like it makes so much sense because all those same people, all those leaders and everything, they're at the National. In fact, even more of them are at the National.
Yeah.
But they've just never done it. So in the absence of that, the Mint, and then also there's Industry Summit, which takes place in the fall. But the Mint has a little more pizzazz to it than Industry Summit does. A little more, just a little more sizzle. It's it's got a little more money behind it, frankly. I think.
Yep.
And
it's IMG.
Yeah, it's IMG.
is they do great shows.
Yeah. And Industry Summits, I enjoy going to Industry Summit as well. But the Mint is definitely, I think it's a great event. It's not for every collector. Like if you're simply wanting to go for the card show, you're probably going to be a little bit underwhelmed. You're probably honestly better off going to Burbank or Dallas, or one of these other big card shows. Chantilly was actually the same weekend, something like that. But if you're there for the networking, for the learning, for the exposure, for the just being part of the leadership of the hobby, being able to, meet all the content creators and everything like that, then the Mint is 1000% where you should go. Plus it's in Vegas.
Yeah.
I love card shows in Vegas.
I know you do.
I love a good excuse to go to Vegas. It was Final Four weekend to boot.
I just love the disparity between thought here because it's like anytime I'm not the biggest fan of Vegas. I don't gamble. So I go there and it's like, oh, these are really great restaurants. And, I've got a lot of shopping at my fingertips, but it's like, I'll go with you guys and you guys will gamble. Like, that's really cool. Glad you guys won $1,400 in a night.
Love the city. Love the city. Gambling, shows. I mean, you got incredible shows.
Yeah.
You got incredible restaurants. You've got world-class spas. You've got amazing pools.
But how much of that do you get to see when we ever go to
fantastic shopping? You got it all there. I mean, it's a lovely, plus tons of hotel options. Very easy to get in and out. Good airport. Everything's close to the airport. It's lovely. It is a great city for the Mint Collective, and I hope we get more card shows in Vegas in the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of Vegas.
There we go.
Geoff Wilson. Well, before we wrap, I want to give a major props to the actual Mint staff. Blake, Amanda, Lauren, we worked with a bunch of people that allowed us to get in there and get access for our media to show you guys and things like that. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the actual Mint production because they put a lot of work.
They did
a lot of work into it. It was a great event. Really good event.
All right. Well, good conversation. We'll be back at the Mint next year. Looking forward to that. And, go Beckett. I really hope, I'm rooting for
20
Beckett.
to 30 days, Beckett.
I know, obviously we've been critical of their handling of some of this in this episode, but I really do think that they've got the opportunity to do something really big in a positive way with this. And I really hope they do, because the card industry will be better if Beckett is successful at this change.
I know. Yes, we have been critical, but I think it's just also what you could consider feedback.
Yeah.
Right? So this would be the same thing of them insisting on feedback. I mean, it's not being critical. We're giving opinion on how it transpired and what the best course of action would be at this moment. So, I mean, consider this feedback.
Now the key is they got to listen to this as well as the other thousands of people that want their voices heard.
Exactly.
All right. We appreciate you guys watching out there. Thank you. You can, of course, follow this on YouTube. It's also, by the way, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you'd rather listen to the audio version in the future, go subscribe there. And we put little clips from the show on It's Geoff Wilson, Instagram, and TikTok as well. So appreciate you, Kelly. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.